Welcome in, everyone. What's going on? What's going on? What up, Pasta? What up, Fair? Just taking a look at something real quick while everyone gets in here, guys. Welcome in, though. Welcome in. Give me just a quick sec. See if we can look at something real quick. Oh, perfect. Found it. Exactly what I was looking for. Alright. Well, welcome in, guys. Welcome in. What's going on, everyone? What's going on? Merry Christmas. Appreciate that, Roger. Hopefully everyone had a pretty good day today. Today was actually, I know some of you started off pretty bad. Hopefully you ended it pretty green. I know that there were some alerts. I know that a lot of people got hit by Facebook. I should actually start with Facebook, by the way. I know that some of you got hit with it. It was not looking too pretty, to be honest with you. I will say, and just so I can start off, pretty much just giving you a gist of maybe what happened with Facebook, because that was actually one that really, I think, got to everyone, and I should probably bring up what I'm possibly looking at instead, in case those of you are still holding that position. And I'll get to Tesla and a slew of other names and all the other alerts that went off today. But bringing that Facebook came to my attention real quick. I do have this little megaphone action, as you see on the screen right now, and I should have enlarged that a while ago. You see a little megaphone action. What I'm really looking for today was I was expecting this right shoulder to hold. As you see, you have a little bit of a left shoulder action right here. You have that massive head that was our gap down just recently, and then I was expecting this steep drop off to be the head for our right shoulder, and it just didn't end up happening that way. We ended up having it just continue to just steepen, and that's what everyone got hit by. We didn't expect it to go down that far. It looks like it ended up covering that prior gap that we had. We went below the prior gap that we ended up filling. As I show you, you look at that prior gap, we literally went below that mark that we had already filled before. And so right now we're just looking for that curl to the upside. I will be there to guide you guys tomorrow. And someone just said robot. I know Roger said I was fine. Um, if anyone can just give me the okay, I should be fine now. Mic test, mic test. Robot. Good enough. Good enough. We should be good. I'm gonna take that word. If everyone has a robot, just let me know. But getting back to Facebook here, looking at that megaphone action, we're gonna look forward to tomorrow, see if we get a better price action. But I'm looking for that curl up. It's looking like it's actually forming a little bit of a micro inverted head and shoulders also. So that's another thing that I'm gonna be watching as well. Looking at the alert that particularly went off. One quick second. Alright, let me just take a look at one other thing here. I do want to look particularly on that alert here on Facebook at what time it really came out. That's what I just want to highlight to make sure that I covered. It came out at 10:50 in the morning and they hit it at a price mark of 333.43. So if I zoom in today and that way I get into today's action more so, just looking at today, that was at 333.43 is the price point. That's really what I'm more concerned about is the price point that they got in at 343. So they got in right around this chop if we go into today's action. And it literally just went straight down. So this is one of those scenarios where you would have had to obey your stop loss. That would have been one of the key things because as you would have saw here, it literally started the day off with that chop, but you never got any kind of meaningful reversal. This just ended up turning into a stair step in which it ended up becoming a bear flag. That's all that was. But there was no actual, pretty much, conviction of a reversal here. That's what I want to get that message across. So in this particular case, and this is why every alert is not always going to be pretty much a go ahead and just crystal clear like that. You're going to have to be at times where you obey your stop loss, whether it be 10%, 15, even up to 30%. And I say up to 30% depending on the type of ticker that you're trading. Obviously 30%, I mean, you're applying that to names that are really volatile, like looking at Amazon, Tesla, Google, those type of names. But this is one of those where you have to obey your stop loss. Could you have averaged down at some point on one of these wicks and taken a quick percentage? Yes, but if you were looking for a big move, more than a 20% gainer out of this, then yes, that would not have worked in this scenario. So this one, you could have treated it like a rapid, got a quick 10% if you would have averaged down on one of these wicks down. But other than that, if you were really looking for a bigger move than just a rapid type percent gain, that was a failure. All right. So I do want to say that, but in all seriousness, you needed to obey your stop loss in this case. So that's the point and message that I want to get across on Facebook here. Hopefully, those of you that listen to me in Dapper towards the end got in on Tesla, and I'll get to Tesla's play. But hopefully, that ended up recovering that bad move out of Facebook here. But moving on real quick so that I can get through all the other alerts, show you really what happened through the day. Looking at the other one that I wanted to highlight was also XOP. This is one that in particular I was actually asking, and I know that Tatum actually commented on this one in particular when I was looking at XOP, and I'm like, why XOP at this time of the day? And we also had oil inventories that were coming out. But this is one that you could have also gotten a quick little percentage out of, a quick little move. They got in at 96.54, in which they got in right when it started to curl down. You could have ended up getting into this one, and that would have been a nice little scalp that you got out of that. So I do like that one. It was a beautiful little trade that you could have got out of it. I was in Tesla at the time that this ended up going out, so I didn't get into this trade in particular. But getting in at 96.54, you had this entire scalp down, which about a good 60 cent move. And for how slow these contracts move and how cheap the premium was in particular, it would have been a good scalp playing and treating it like a rapid. That would have been a beautiful little quick 10% gain that you would have got out of that little decline going into the close. So that was a beautiful one. That was a success. The other one was Pfizer. This one was just beautiful, and I don't even think you have to know what went on today, what the news alert was today, but you can tell out of this vertical action here that that would have been a beautiful, beautiful move out of this one. The only thing is that this alert actually came out right near close enough to the top where you saw this reversal. They pinpointed this at 60.34, so right where the cursor is, towards the mid top of this candle on that peak, is where they ended up getting in. Now, you always hear me come on live, and I usually say how to treat rapids, and you will also hear me on live, is usually set a low balling order. Set a limit order, sell a low ball order, so that way you get filled on the wick down, and that way you can actually get your 8-10% on the wick right back up on whether it be on that candle or the next candle. All right. But the other scenario that you could have ended up doing here is if you ended up getting filled pretty high, right at the peak, you could have came back down, easily averaged down, and then you would have took the next wick that got you your next 10%. If you took this entire move from the bottom where you averaged down at this bottom wick, then you would have got way more than 10% if you held through this entire move. That was easily about a 40% move. If you got filled at the top, averaged down at the bottom, and you took this entire right back up. But you didn't even need to take that entire right back up. If you averaged down, you probably got filled right on this wick right halfway back there, and that would have gave you your 10% really easily. So that was a beautiful one, and yeah, I saw the alert that went off for the Pfizer. I think I actually was the one that commented it on live for everyone. But this was just a beautiful one, and when you're usually chasing news like this, again, treat it like the rapid, as this was a rapid, but set a low balling order, set a limit order. Don't try to chase this, especially trying to do a market order. And if necessary at times, yes, you do want to add a contract or two to average down at certain times. But of course, you still want to obey a stop loss. I'm not going to tell you not, average down and make matters worse for yourself. There are times where you have to know in what scenario you are. If you're down for the day, if you're really negative at the moment, you really want to still obey your stop loss. I'm not going to tell you not to do that. So there are times where you do feel like it's necessary to average down. If you see that you have a bit of a cushion, then you basically are able to average down like you would have averaged down in this scenario, and you would have benefited out of it. If you don't have a cushion, if maybe you've been red on the week, then yes, you know what? You would have obeyed your stop loss and been out of this trade just like you should have been out of Facebook. All right. So I do want to get that message across. The other one was pretty much a banger, and Avery literally highlighted this one. It was a beautiful move that we got out of Humana. This alert literally came out the blue. I don't think anyone was expecting this one, especially the ticker that it is. But that was just a beautiful move that they ended up picking up here on Humana. I know that this one was a little bit pricey. It was hard for those of you that are trading with smaller account sizes. Maybe it's an account challenge or you're growing a small account. But this was a beautiful little scalp here. You got a quick 15%. I know that someone ended up trading it in chat. They got a quick 15%, if not possibly more out of some others. All right. But they ended up getting in. 453.11 is where they got in. So they got in more or less, I want to say, right about halfway of this middle candle here at the top. So right where my line is, that's where they ended up getting in. And you had an entire move towards the upside here. And that's where you would have got your 15%. But again, if you got in right where they had that 453.11, you wanted to set a limit order. That's usually how I always set my trades. If it's unusual, I'll set a limit order. If it's a rapid, I'll usually set a low balling order. And I'll actually show you exactly what I did with Tesla when I tried to trade it and I just didn't get filled. And there was another time where I did set a limit order, a low balling order, and it ended up working out in my favor. But unusual, I would have set a limit order here, tried to get filled under the spot that they got right on that candle. And that would have been a beautiful quick 15% like I know someone got in chat. All right. On the, another one, and this was an interesting chart here. I'm actually going to be paying attention to it tomorrow. If someone actually remembers looking at NVIDIA right now, in case I forget about it, someone can just tag me or ping me in chat tomorrow. But before I actually go through the alert, if you notice, this is a beautiful intraday inverted head and shoulders. So I would love to see what the continuation is going to be out of NVIDIA tomorrow. I know that Avery was actually upset with NVIDIA. He was holding, I don't know how many contracts that was going to give him about X thousands of dollars. But he ended up selling right before it just literally flew for the day. And I kind of felt bad about that. I think it was right around this area, right around 11 o'clock in the morning, before it ended up just ripping to the upside. He ended up selling. And I kind of had that same exact feeling yesterday when I sold it on the V shape down. And then it ended up just exploding with NASDAQ. So it is what it is, but this was a beautiful one. I want to see the continuation of this inverted head and shoulders tomorrow. So in case I just forget, someone can literally just ping me in chat tomorrow. But it is what it is. No, we do not have a half a day tomorrow, by the way. It is a full day. Markets are actually closed entirely on Friday for the observance of Christmas Day. All right. But looking real quick for the Nvidia Rapid here, they got in at 294. That was earlier in the morning at 11:18. Let's see exactly where the mark was, 11:18, and they got filled at 294.95. So they got filled right in between these two massive wicks, in which again, this is a spot where you wanted to set a limit order, set a low balling order, particularly on this first massive candle. Look to get filled on the move back down, so that way you can get your exit on the way up to get that full 10% sooner rather than all the way to the top. That was a beautiful one. That literally did end up paying you your 10%. That was easy rapid right there, getting filled, and it actually peaked at 295. So that was a beautiful quick one that you would have got into. That would have gave you your 10%. They'd have killed your contracts. You got 310 calls. All right, so that is exactly why that ended up killing Theta, is because you went really far out of the money. 310 calls are really steep right now. That would have really put you out there. I would have even said playing these rapids. I usually try to go at the money despite whatever they have on the rapid. Me particularly, that's usually my favor. Is either going in the money if I know that it's a really high Theta ticker. I usually just try to go in the money so that way Theta's not affecting me, and also I can just get a quicker 10% move. If it's something that I know is usually like a lower volatile stock, something like a Facebook, like an Apple, and particularly like a Nvidia, I'll usually go at the money, and that way I can get filled on the wick down. So that way, once I get that candle right back up, I'll usually get my quick 5%, and then usually start to scale out. So that was a beautiful one. You would have had the opportunity to get your 10% out of this one. It was a beautiful move. We'll see what the continuation is tomorrow. But again, Roger, that 310 call was really far out of the money trying to play that, especially if you're trying to day trade with that. That was definitely a big no-no right there. I will say whenever you're trying to play rapids, definitely try to go closer to the money than going 310 calls. That was very steep. So I will say that. The other one that I wanted to point out, and this one was a little bit interesting in scratching. I was literally scratching my head, no lie, when I saw this come out because I was a little bit confused at first, and I'm like, but why? They ended up having a Nimbus on coin. So two things to notice here, and this one was a failure. They got it in. They triggered it really early in the morning. They got it at 2:49, which was way down here before it even took off on coin. But two things that I noticed was one, it was really deep in the money. They hit 400 strike. So that was a red flag. And then the second red flag was that they gave themselves 2 months of time, going all the way out to February. So that was two things that you really wanted to observe here, to know that you really probably should have avoided this one or went in light at that fact. I will keep an eye on it, so it's not something that I'm going to ignore. I will see if we end up peaking at some point, if there's going to be a bearish pattern that ends up developing. So I'll make a note of this one. I'll have a note on my computer to really look at it and monitor it. But it's not something that I got into today. It's not something that was presenting when I looked at the overall chart and how much this chart has really just been beaten up, and just watching the downtrend, looking for a downtrend break right now. And I don't know why that wick is there with that alert. I think it shifted. But really looking for a downtrend break. I think at this point, as far as how much this ticker has really been beaten up on coin here, I don't see why they would look for more downside just yet. So I'll keep an eye on it again, but just know the fact that the two red flags, and that's what you really want to pay attention to out of that alert today, was one, the strike that they ended up getting really deep in the money, and then two, giving themselves 2 months of time on that alert. So that was also a failure today. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to end up being a failure, but they give themselves a lot of time on that alert there. All right. Another one, and this one was also a little bit of a failure here today. Also, it was a little bit of a red flag. If you followed in chat though, and that was one of the key things, I mean, especially following us on live, we usually give you the updates. Following those on in chat that are pretty much our valuable traders, like the Dans of the world, the Mambas of the world. Those guys, you really want to follow those guys on the trades that they really say that they're taking or they're possibly in at the time. This is one that you would have noticed that Mamba was actually holding calls on Google. This was just a beautiful trade on his part that he ended up getting. And this really just went vertical. Not to say that this alert again is going to end up being a failure, because we don't know. I mean, Nasdaq's already ran so much. We could end up getting a pullback and this could still end up being a success. But it's pretty much a wait and see. If you got into it, yes, it's more than likely that you ended up triggering your stop loss really early in the morning, because this literally just flew about $60 today. So I will treat this one just like the coin. We'll monitor it. We'll wait to see if any bearish pattern develops, and of course we'll be there to alert it right on live. All right. But your red flag on this one wasn't necessarily the alert itself. They gave themselves pretty much the right alert. I'm sure they probably hit a stop loss. If they're still holding it, it is pretty brutal. It's pretty brutal to really be holding that from 28.40, and we're now sitting way outside of that. But we'll keep an eye. We'll see what Google does. But red flag was knowing that Mamba in premium chat was holding calls, and he was posting it pretty much pretty early in the morning. So you would have known that, and none of us were really mentioning this Google put really on live, really saying that what, this really looked good, or any of us were entering it. So that was another red flag as well. All right. Moving on, the other alert, and this was pretty much a banger, was the rapid on Apple. And what I usually love about looking at the rapids on the day is, what I usually like to favor is looking back at rapids that end up favoring the market trend. So when I see a rapid that's usually a put and the market's red, I usually end up looking back at that rapid, even later on in the day. Like this Apple, you probably saw me looking at the chart more than one time today, because this wrap was literally a banger for the entire day because it followed the market trend. So this was a beautiful one here. This pretty much, it literally gave you your 10% plus times 10. It was literally that much of a beautiful trade. I know that Tatum was following it. I believe Dapper, I don't know, actually, I don't think Dapper was looking at it at all. I think Avery was the one that glanced at Apple also. But I was literally looking at this one. I was pretty much right into the end of the day here, actually. I literally said it was going to literally go up to 175, and it literally broke way above 175. So that was a beautiful one as well. I gave that scalp towards the end of the day, and that was a beautiful one. But key takeaway is usually looking back at rapids that follow the market trend and looking back at them towards midday or end of the day usually ends up being a real banger. All right. And then, of course, bringing it to the beast itself, looking at Tesla. This was just a beautiful one today. I mean, the price action. I know that Avery ended up saying it was gonna go to like 980 something. Me and Dapper really just held our guns and we're like, it's gonna end up just moving north. We really expected it to go back to 1,000 mark. I literally told him to sell at like 10:06, and then he had an appointment and he left. It literally hit that 10:06, pulled back pretty hard, and then it just started to rip right into 10:08, and that was just a beautiful move. But looking at the alerts that went off, again, you had the rapids that went off early in the morning. You and just like I mentioned with Apple Rapid, you usually look back at those tickers throughout the day because they usually signal more and more buyers stepping in, following the market trend. All right, and then of course you had the rapid that followed it up. That was ended up being a banger, even though that was a little bit out of the money there, 1075s. That also did end up paying, so it ended up working out in your favor if you ended up holding that. But that was also just a quick move. I wanted to get in this morning. That was just a beautiful rip this morning. I think if you saw on my live, I actually had a little bit of an ascending triangle formation right here. I was watching. It literally just broke this ascending triangle and it just went north. That was literally all it did. That's basically what you had. It was literally just an ascending triangle and it just busted straight north and went flying. And I think it even passed me and Avery's levels. Definitely were not expecting it to go that high. I was just literally just expecting it to go to about 1,000 and then probably pull back. But that was just a ripper. And then watching the entire decline, I was literally tempted to get back in right around this area to see a better reversal, thinking that it was going to end up flagging here. That wasn't necessarily the case, ended up giving you a fake out. And so I just continued to wait, looking forward to test the anchored VWAP. And that was the point where you heard me on live, and I pretty much gave that call out. And once I ended up getting that, and what I actually did was I set a limit order. It wasn't necessarily a limit order, it was more so a low ball order. And I got filled right on that wick down below the anchored VWAP, which ended up lining up. That support line lined up with the top of this wick, the bottom of this wick, and right where we wicked off for the full reversal. So what I ended up doing was right when I saw this hammer candle, I set a lowballing order to see if I would get filled right below the anchored VWAP, and that was exactly what ended up happening. I got filled on that lowballing order right below the anchored VWAP, and I literally took that ride straight up. And you probably heard me when I said that I ended up exiting. I got out right around that wick, right towards 10:02, and I was out of that trade. And I know that Dapper was still holding it, so any of you that actually still had more conviction holding it with Dapper, that was beautiful. But that was just a quick in and out, getting filled right around this mark of what 990, close enough to 989, and I was literally just out at 10:02. That was just a quick what $10 move out of Tesla that I ended up scalping out of that. Just really beautiful. I know that straight also took my call out as well. I think at first I was saying 993 at first when we ended up double bottom, actually triple bottoming here. He got a quick 20% right out of that bounce because I knew that was going down to towards 993. I was looking for that level first and ended up bouncing beautifully and ended up being a head fake. So that was another one, but that was literally pretty much saving the day here for those of you that ended up getting bad calls out of the alerts with the Facebook, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Pfizer, you end up losing. That was literally just saving the day there towards the end of the day. I just love that trade. And I didn't even look back at getting into anything else. I literally called out the scalp on Apple and I didn't even get into it. Because there's certain times where you know what, you hit a certain limit, you've gone through enough exhaustion, and you just, where you're like, you know what, I hit a target and I'm usually just out. or you already get that mental fatigue, and you know what, you know you have to be out of the market. So that was literally all it was for me today, was just that Tesla. We'll see what the market gives us tomorrow. I don't have a watch list tonight, guys. So let's see what the market gives us. We'll play it off of whatever the market's going to give us. And I haven't even looked at futures at all. So futures are pretty much just flat. We'll see what futures do in the morning. But other than that, I think that'll be all for tonight, guys. I'll be on live tomorrow morning. We'll see what it does. I don't think that all of us are going to be on live, particularly for the entire day. I know that Avery's not planning to trade the entire day. Not certain about Tom. He may be on and off on voice, possibly. I'll look to be trading in the morning with Avery. We'll see if the day gets interesting or not, in particular. You know, going into the holiday week, I don't expect too much to end up happening. Of course, we'll see when Tesla does. Of course, that'll probably be the top of the watch list, along with Apple. Uh, One thing that if you probably heard, and this is one of the beautiful things that I actually try to do every morning now, is usually finding out where the relative strength is versus the weakness. And even Avery was alluding to that too this morning when I was trying to point it out. He was looking at Amazon, and I took a quick scalp with him on Amazon. We both got a quick entry on Amazon, and he was looking for it to explode today. But one thing that I noticed was when Nasdaq futures really just started to push. I think Nasdaq futures were up about 30 points at one point of the day. We pushed up to 60 points and then regressed right back down to being near flat. At that point, when we ended up pulling back, what I was really looking for on that pullback was to see which stocks were really holding and which stocks were really just showing more weakness. And that's when I identified that Amazon was really just not going anywhere. It couldn't get past $11 in gains. When Nasdaq futures ended up pulling back, it just continued to regress and even went back red at a certain point. That ended up showing me that it was showing weakness. Facebook ended up being just continued to be red. I ended up getting that signal of its weakness. I was looking for the red to green, didn't work out. And then what I ended up noticing was Google took off, and then we had Microsoft and Apple pretty much also showing strength. So I knew that those three were really the top of the head of just carrying the market, along with Tesla doing what Tesla does. So that's one thing. We'll see what the market does again tomorrow, looking at that relative strength and the relative weakness, depending upon the market direction tomorrow. All right, that's what we'll try to wean out, is that weakness versus strength on the day. All right. I think Tom was the only one doing first half of the day. We'll see. I know that Avery mentioned that he wasn't planning to trade the entire day tomorrow. I don't know if I'll necessarily be trading the entire day. It just depends what the market really presents to us. I don't really anticipate trading the entire day. Again, it depends what the market's really going to do. Is it really going to give us an interesting day? Or is it really just going to be a chop fest? A little bit of a bloody day. We'll see what it ends up doing. I think it's more so going to be a little bit of a chop. We'll probably get some nice moves. I expect Apple to really be up there and still pushing. Once Apple gets to 180, then I will question what the market's going to do at that point. But for now, I think market's going to hold until Apple gets to 180. I mean, that's just my opinion, personal opinion. So I'll be looking for that. I think the market's just going to hold up tomorrow, but in all likelihood, you're gonna see an overall chop fest tomorrow. That's what I would anticipate and be prepared for. So don't try to really push anything tomorrow, really early in the morning. Wait to see what either myself, Avery, or Tom are really looking at in the morning, and then we'll see what the market, how much the market's really up. If it's really gonna start to push, or if it's really just gonna open flat and rather stay flat. All right. But I'll see you guys in the morning. Randy, also have a wonderful day. I'll see you guys in the morning. We'll see what the market does. For those of you that I probably won't see on live tomorrow, granted, market's closed on Friday. You guys have a Merry Christmas. But those of you that are gamblers and you always need to be making money, I'll see you guys in the morning. You guys have a good night. We'll see you guys in the morning then, all right?